The greatest betrayal is not from others, but from the self who sacrifices its truth to appease the world. Unknown number 1. You are standing in the aftermath of a battlefield you never agreed to fight on. Not a war of swords or guns, but of trust. A quiet, slow psychological erosion of your heart. Until one day, all that's left is silence where loyalty used to speak. You remember giving them everything. Your loyalty, your patience, your silence, your vulnerability. You protected their name in rooms they didn't even know you entered. You swallowed your pride to keep peace they didn't deserve. You gave them chances they would never give you in return. You waited, you forgave, you stayed, and they played with it. Played with your loyalty like it was a toy, easy to drop, easy to pick up again, like a leash they could pull when they felt insecure and release when they didn't need you. They thought your loyalty was weakness. They mistook your kindness for submission. They saw the depth of your heart, and instead of protecting it, they tested it over and over. They called you too much. They said, you care too deeply. You love too loudly. You forgive too quickly. But now they say you've changed. They whisper that you've become cold, detached, distant, even cruel. Now they call you the villain. But here's the truth they'll never say out loud. You didn't become the villain. They created one. Every time they crossed a line and you let it slide. Every time they betrayed your trust and you buried the pain. Every time they played games with your soul and you still showed up the next day. They were molding something dark, sharp, and unbreakable inside you. So here's the paradox. What happens when a loyal heart finally stops beating for someone else and starts burning for itself? What happens when the person who always took the high road decides the high road leads to nowhere? What do you call a saint when the fire inside them turns to wrath? You were never the villain. You were the cure they infected, the anchor they let go, the light they tried to dim, only to be blinded when it fought back with fire. And now they want to act like the consequences are unprovoked. They want to tell their side of the story. I don't know what happened. They just switched up. But you know, deep down you know. You were loyal until it became self-betrayal. You stayed until it became self-destruction. You loved until it cost your identity. And here's the terrifying question, the one you've probably buried beneath reason, morality, and all the things that made you noble in the first place. What if the only way to heal is to become everything they feared you'd turn into? Not out of vengeance, not out of spite, but because you finally realize there's no salvation in letting people keep mistaking your silence for acceptance. You never wanted to be the villain. But what if that's the only role left for someone who's done playing the victim? What if loyalty without boundaries isn't virtue at all, but a slow suicide in disguise? They say villains are born from broken hearts, but maybe, just maybe, villains are born when good hearts wake up and stop letting people spit on them. So tell me, when loyalty turns to ashes, when forgiveness feels like a loaded gun pointed at your own head, when your love is used as leverage against you, what do you become then? You become the mirror. You become the reckoning. You become the one thing they never expected, the villain they handcrafted with their own hands. And maybe that's not the tragedy. Maybe that's the justice. The question isn't, why did you change? The real question is, why did they think you never would? Let that question hang. Let it echo in the hollow silence they left behind. Let it burn in the spaces they used to occupy, because the story doesn't end here. This is the beginning. This is the moment the loyal one rises, not to beg, not to bend, but to break free. And in that freedom, something darker awakens, something wiser, something they can't control anymore. Now, let's go deeper. What really drives this transformation? Why do the ones who give the most often end up becoming the ones who feel the least? Why does society teach us to wear loyalty like armor, only for it to be the knife they twist in our backs? Let's pull back the mask. Let's unveil the hidden force that shapes this betrayal, and reveal what no one ever dares to say out loud. 2. You were taught that loyalty is a virtue. You were told to be the constant in a world that's always changing, that holding on is strength and letting go is weakness, that good people stay even when it hurts, even when it breaks them, even when the person on the other side stopped deserving them a long time ago. But here's the secret they never tell you. Loyalty, when misdirected, becomes self-abandonment dressed as nobility. And the deeper question becomes, why do we keep offering loyalty to those who haven't earned it? Why do we stay in spaces where our worth is diminished, our boundaries violated, and our silence mistaken for consent? The answer lies buried in the dark corners of psychology, philosophy, and the architecture of the self. Let's start with Carl Jung, who warned us about the shadow self, the unconscious part of our psyche that holds all the traits we deny, suppress, or reject. When you are taught from an early age to be the good one, to avoid conflict, to people please in exchange for love, you repress your rage, you disown your anger, you bury your resentment beneath a carefully constructed mask of patience and understanding. But that rage doesn't die. It waits. It grows fangs in silence. Jung believed that the more you repress your shadow, the more it controls you from the dark. That's why one day you wake up and snap. Not because you changed, but because the parts of you that you kept denying finally demanded to be seen. The villain they say you've become isn't new. He was always there. He was forged in the fire of betrayal. He was sculpted by the pressure of your silence. Now let's bring in Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher of fire and truth. He said, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you." But what if the monster was you all along? not in the way they feared, but in the way you feared yourself, your capacity for wrath, your potential for distance, your ability to no longer care. We fear becoming the monster because we've been conditioned to believe that goodness means tolerance. But Nietzsche reminds us, true power lies in owning your shadow, not suppressing it. To become whole, you must walk through the fire of your own fury. You must face the part of you that remembers every betrayal, even the ones you pretended didn't matter. Nietzsche called this becoming who you truly are, not a puppet of society's moral scripts, but a soul who burns down false loyalty to make room for real power. Then there's Viktor Frankl, who endured the brutality of concentration camps and still emerged with a soul intact. He taught us that meaning is the answer to suffering, that pain, betrayal, and injustice can all be transformed, but only if we choose to confront them consciously. He once said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." And that's where the rebellion begins, because maybe, just maybe, the only real betrayal is betraying yourself for the comfort of others, for the illusion of peace, for the lie that if you keep proving your love, they'll stop hurting you. But here's the harsh truth. People don't change because you love them harder. They change, if they ever do, because they are confronted with the pain of their actions. And most people will avoid that confrontation at all costs. So what do? They vilify you. They say you switched up. You became cold, unavailable, selfish. But in reality, you just stopped sacrificing yourself to keep the illusion alive. You woke up. You pulled your loyalty back from the people who drained it, and in doing so, you committed the one crime they couldn't forgive. You stopped bleeding for them. Now let's dive deeper into Arthur Schopenhauer, who believed that most human relationships are rooted in illusion. That much of what we call love or loyalty is merely projection, us loving what we want to see, not what's actually there. We aren't loyal to the person. We're loyal to the potential we once believed in. We remain tethered to a ghost version of someone who existed only in the beginning, a version we keep chasing long after they've revealed who they truly are. This is the real trap, not the betrayal, but the story we tell ourselves to justify staying. It's not them we're loyal to. It's our own narrative of, I can fix this. I can prove I'm worth it. I can make them love me right. But what if they never could? What if loyalty was never about them at all, but about the wound in you that told you love must be earned through pain? And now we arrive at the core. Loyalty, when given blindly, is not a virtue. It is a trauma response, a cycle, a repetition of an old wound, a desperate act to rewrite a childhood script where you had to overextend just to be noticed. So the question must evolve. Not why did they betray me, but why?